To the Empire In Exile podcast, episode 15. I'm your host, Dorf, joined each and every week by Josh. How's it going tonight, Josh?
Awesome, man. How are you?
Not too bad. On tonight's program, we're talking money and politics. As you can, if you're watching this in the video form, you can see on your screen, free speech or legalized corruption. We're first going to go over a couple of articles here tonight. Specifically about current happenings on the subject, that being involving Mike Bloomberg, Mini Mike, New York City mayor, founder of the Bloomberg News Network.
You're using Trump's speech.
Professional mini person. He is very small, but he is also very loaded.
You're starting off with the fact Mike Bloomberg and I are the same height.
I know you. Well, you are very small as well. So. Anyway, Mike Bloomberg has pledged to spend $100 million in his own money. Yes, this man who he already spent over $100 million in his attempt to run for president this cycle, just to get like 2% in the polls and bow out. Is going to spend another $100 million of his personal fortune to try and conquer the swing state of Florida for Joe Biden. Let's get right into that one.
Let's.
This isn't the first time, if you know, in the aftermath of the Sandy Hook shooting, you saw the Moms Demand. Or action and the Every Town for, against gun violence groups. I don't think that's their official names, but you know what I'm talking about. Pop up. Those are Mike Bloomberg is going to bankroll political action committees, which is perfectly, by the way, under the rules of the game, his activity is perfectly legal. He's going to spend $100 million of his own money, which is probably, if I had to guess, 5 times what the actual Biden campaign will spend and be able to spend in the state, to swing it for Joe Biden. I personally think it's shitty, but at the same time, Josh from Money Speech.
Well, okay, I want to kind of start with this. You brought up Bloomberg. In my opinion, in my unfettered opinion, I guess, this is something that I've thought for quite some time, but in the last year, in the last 6 months, and especially in the last week, this has been solidified with me. I have no idea how Mike Bloomberg got so rich.
I do. Do you want to know?
In my view. Oh, well, if you want to jump in with it, you can.
Oh, okay. So he founded a highly successful data analytics firm, which the profits from that have made him insanely wealthy.
Okay, and that's great. I respect his right to his right to his own capital. That's great. Whether or not Mike Bloomberg is, I'm sure he's a brilliant financial mind. I'm sure that he has made great choices when it comes to furthering. Even if some luck was involved, he still made great choices in furthering the investments and where his company's gone. And that's great. I still think the guy is an idiot. Whether or not he's a useful idiot or a non-useful idiot, that's what I can't quite figure out. Whether or not the system, he's using the system or the system is using him. Again, I'm just still working on figuring that out. I know that he is statist and elitist, and that he does not give a damn about your liberty, and that although he wouldn't put it this way, or his people wouldn't let him put it this way, he absolutely positively thinks that he has more rights than you because he is richer than you. And because he's richer than you, he is better than you, so therefore you should listen to him. He also believes that when a person gets into power, whether they get there through financial means or get voted in as mayor of New York or as not president of the United States, that gives them the right to take away your rights. You know, that he's not there to be an executive, he's there to be a ruler. You know, I mean, I think he absolutely believes that and has demonstrated that.
So
now, does his money how did you phrase the actual question? So I'm not.
well, it's not necessarily
repeating
just
the question here.
his money, but his money in general speech. Is spending money a protected First Amendment action? Well, it's not just spending money in general. It's spending money on political activity a protected First Amendment right. In your mind, we're gonna cover the case law at the end of the episode, but in your mind,
right?
What is it?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know me, Dorf. I'm not going to give a shit about the case law because, I mean, I have no problem saying that a law has corrupted a good idea, you know, through any means. But I do not believe necessarily that money equals free speech, but I believe that you have the right to spend your money how you want. So if one wants to say that falls under the First Amendment, then I guess that's fine. To me, money has always granted power, but money does not grant you rights. The rich have always been powerful and privileged. That basically cannot be changed, and I don't think it's the government's job to change it. So, do you have the right to use your money to put your opinion out there? Sure. Do you have the right to use your money to quell the opinion of someone else? No. You do not.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's mostly just my opinion.
I had never thought about it that way. Anyway, I'm going to go through I've got the article here. You, if you're watching us on video, can follow along.
Ah. Florida is a unique case as well with, I mean, Jeb Bush and his Latino family have done a lot. Just, I mean, as an individual, he has done a lot to change the Latino vote of Florida, you know. So, I mean, Jeb Bush has done well in Florida with Latino voters. George W. Bush did well in Florida with Latino voters. These are, so it is kind of a unique case there.
Yeah, it is true, but at the same time, even if you look at the graphic polling in other areas of the country with large Latino populations, Donald Trump's polling success this cycle isn't unique in Florida. So, so Mike Bloomberg, if Florida is an incredibly key state, no matter what way you slice it for both sides. It's not a take it or you lose scenario, but things really, really get harder for you if you're Donald Trump. You're going to have to sweep the Midwest, which is looking hard. Specifically, he's taken some step backs in Michigan.
Florida is the largest swing state.
It is.
You will. I mean, it is the largest swing state.
Well, Pennsylvania might be in play now, which it hasn't been in play nationally. It hasn't been traditionally in play nationally for a while, but yeah, you're gonna hopefully get a large, if you're Donald Trump, you're gonna get a large rural Pennsylvania turnout because, oh, by the way, those jobs that you've finally got to work this last decade, Joe Biden has promised to get rid of them because he wants to ban fracking, even though he's flip-flopped on that. Let's not kid ourselves. The real person who will be running the White House, that being Kamala Harris, is not a fan of the domestic energy industry, and you can essentially start a Great Depression in the Dakotas and Pennsylvania specifically if you were to ban fracking because of some stupid cherry-picked documentary made by Hollywood.
Sure. No, but it is, to go back to your point about those things, Florida is the fourth largest state in the union. Pennsylvania is the seventh largest, and they are states that are in play. You can argue that Florida very well may be the most important state. Electoral college, in play, the three largest states, California, Texas, and New York, are pretty much spoken for.
Texas is getting more purple. It's not a.
I keep hearing that, but does anyone really think
it's
Trump's
not a
lose
state
Texas?
that you can just not have to worry about and count on anymore? It'll still probably go red this cycle, but it's no longer a guaranteed thing. You'll have to spend some money and time campaigning there.
None of them are. I mean,
California and New York are for Democrats.
Who was the last president from California?
Reagan.
Yeah, he was Republican, wasn't he? Who was the one before that?
It was also 30 years ago. Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon. Yeah, I mean, there's been two Republican presidents. One in my lifetime, one a little bit before my lifetime.
At that time, California was a Republican stronghold, and it's flipped just as far opposite the other way.
Where's Arnold Schwarzenegger from again?
Austria.
Good one.
Hey, I'm not wrong there.
You're not. But where was he governor of?
California.
Again, California.
Gotta say it right.
Exactly.
You have to say it right. California.
You can. Arnold Schwarzenegger, George Pataki, Rudy Giuliani. These are Republicans, very famous Republicans from New York and California. Ronald Reagan, the god to many Republicans from California. They do exist, and one has to remember that there are more Republicans in California than there are
in any other state.
Right. Yeah. Or damn near any other. Not in Texas, but damn near any other state.
So,
well, when you figure about 40% of California isn't more than 65% of Texas. So, but you're right. I know you can't ever stop campaigning, but you have to believe. As a national candidate, you have to believe that your supporters in California, Texas, in New York, and in other strongholds are going to do your job there. Yes, you still have to put in some work, but for the most part, you gotta hope and depend on the fact that you're going to take those. Which is another reason that the Electoral College often gets criticized is that, you know, if the popular vote mattered, like Donald Trump couldn't have hung out in Texas and picked up more votes. Like a Democrat couldn't hang out in Cal, but it doesn't matter. You have to take that state. You don't want to use the words "take it for granted," but well, let's say it. You got to take it for granted.
It's electoral math. I mean, you have to. You got to do what you got to play the game here, and that's the way the game is played.
Right.
The rules. If you don't like them, too bad. And
right.
You know, wah, cry about legitimacy. You still lose. So the idea that Mike Bloomberg is spending $100 million, that's a large number. I can't think of a Republican mega donor that does the same thing. Up until even through the 2016 election cycle, you always heard about the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They do similar activities, not quite to this scale. They just have a name that's in short, and you know they're easy to make demons of.
Right.
Although I believe one of them is passed since then. I believe he's passed.
Yes,
on.
yeah. One did die.
Charles and David Koch, that being. I forget which one is the one who's passed on at this point, but.
I forgot as well.
This isn't a uniquely Democrat or liberal or progressive thing.
I also forgot too, but one of them, as I recall, is very conservative, and one of them is basically like a libertarian.
Correct.
So the idea that they're like controlling the right wing, yes, they've thrown a lot of money at,
and the same thing,
at
like,
these causes.
The NRA.
The idea that their ideology is controlling the right wing really doesn't work the same way that people want to point fingers at.
Really controls the Republicans. What you know, Planned Parenthood spends like 8 times as much money. Like, so they control the Democrats? No one's ever accused them of that. But at the same time, like, it just on a personal or moral level, is this okay? I'm not talking law or effectiveness or
sure
the realpolitik of the situation. Is somebody being able to spend the lifetime earnings of, let's say, 27 or to 30 average Americans in one election cycle in one state? Is that okay?
Yes, I think it is. And I mean, if I know I'm not smart enough or not, I don't know. What's the opposite of lazy? Sure, motivated. That's a good one.
Motivated.
I don't think I'm smart enough or motivated enough to become a multi-billionaire. But if I was, or even if I did something dumb to get my money, like inherited it or won the lottery, won the Powerball, the Mega Millions. No, I think I would use that money to do what I think was the right thing, to support causes that I think are just and are right. And I truly believe that I would do that for the right reasons. Perhaps Mike Bloomberg is too. I mean, perhaps he is doing this for the... I think Mike Bloomberg is a power-hungry piece of garbage, personally. You know, I mean, I do too. I do too. The guy has...
Oh, me as well. I mean, just this action, the commitment to spend the $100 million is not what convinced me of that. It's typically his loathing of the peons and
blue collar guys are just
rights.
They're just not as smart as people who sit behind a desk and punch a keyboard. The guys, the
And,
guys
you know,
who
the
swing
whole
hammers
idea
for a
that,
living
you know,
or
the country
work a
bumpkins
plow for
are
a living, just
inferior.
simply they're just not as smart. What is the word he used?
Token. Honestly, fuck that guy.
I believe his
fuck that
exact
guy.
quote was, "They just simply do not have the gray matter that it takes to, to work a computer." I believe it was his exact quote. Listen,
They're rubes, and they just go. They're unsophisticated rubes, and they just don't get it.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm actually, I'm a guy that has swung a hammer for, so. Yeah, so he's actually talking about me directly.
Wow. I didn't even know that. That's as a keyboard puncher.
I mean, I find these these quotes to be. I would be offended by them if I didn't find them to be.
You're a hammer
ludicrous.
swinger. You're a hammer swinger. I'm a keyboard puncher, and I don't like that either.
He's the one that sounds like a fool for saying them, rather than the guy working the plow, or however you want to focus it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, farming machinery is so complicated at this point.
Most
farmers have at least a bachelor's degree, right? In order to get your GMO seeds to grow, you essentially need a biology degree, or a degree specifically in agriculture, like one that the Michigan State University offers. Or hell, you need to practically go to vet school to raise livestock anymore. To run a damn harvester, you need to have a computer engineering or electrical engineering degree to even operate the damn thing. So the idea it's just
really seriously
throw seeds on dirt and let the sky fall.
And we're gonna go with the best of the best
crops.
here too.
Take a totally ignorant statements of
take any state in the union and take one of their very successful farmers, and actually pick one that doesn't have the college degree, just for the hell of it, because you're gonna find ones that they're probably all going to be smart enough to have said college degree, but some are just going to be
There's farmers in every state.
Take one of those farmers and put them in Mike Bloomberg's shoes and make him run that company for a month. Will he do as good a job as Mike Bloomberg? I don't know, but I got to imagine that it's going to be all right, actually. Now take Mike Bloomberg. Try to imagine Mike Bloomberg working a farm 10 hours a day. 10 hours, shit, it's a farmer. 14 hours a day. That doesn't matter. No, I want prime. I want prime Mike Bloomberg. I want him in his best shape ever. In his best shape ever. I want 29-year-old.
Well,
Mike
I know
Bloomberg
he's like 80, but like Mini Mike
to work a farm for a month.
He will not. Can the
dude
pick up a bale of hay?
He will not. He will not survive the experience. I mean, it's a hilarious, sympathetic thing. Listen, for those of you who listened to me in the past, I know Dorf knows this about me. Not a Trump fan, but while Bloomberg was running,
probably not.
At the time, I was saying to people who knew how I vote, saying to them, "You want me to vote for Trump? But, give the nomination to Mike Bloomberg." No.
Well, it's not even give them at the time. I think we
right.
I don't think we were on the air at that point, but I think you and I had discussions.
I think if he could have, he would have. I think if he could have, he would have.
At one point, it looked like he was going to at least try that, but hey.
Well, just to your point, Dorf, I believe what you're referencing is we did discuss this
on Mike Bloomberg,
when we were both on the Empire Media on the show we did on Tom. Yeah, it was the show we did on Tom Steyer. We
Was it
talked
that
about
far
this,
back? I don't even remember.
and which was supposed to be the beginning of a
Right. Yep, that's it.
a series, if you will, on all the different Democratic candidates, but it became so impossible to keep our lunches down trying that series that we only did about 3 or 4 of them instead of everyone, and we never did get to Mike Bloomberg before he dropped out after getting like
Yeah.
7 votes, like $1 million a vote or
He
something.
bailed. I think it was 59 delegates. He probably spent
I mean,
like
you're
$2
talking
million
about a guy.
a delegate. And just for reference, you need that way.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that literally no one supported the man for president. I mean, you really can say that the dude bought every single vote. I mean, every person that voted for that guy basically voted for him because, like, oh, I saw 17 of his commercials on the way in. I can't get his name out of my head. It's a pathetic run for the presidency. Arguably the most pathetic presidential run, and most wasteful presidential run in American history. But hey, at least people in New York can't have 17-ounce sodas. Statist pig. Right. Yeah. Now he is when to me, if the Josh Houselander dictionary, the Josh Houselander Urban Dictionary came in print form, like when you looked up statist pig, it would just be a stolen uncredited picture of Mike Bloomberg. He's basically the worst of his kind. And to make matters worse, Dorf, he discredited and he brought shame upon short people around the world.
Yeah,
that's I'm just thinking man, I
can't think of a better one.
If
than
I
that.
ran, would I
that's
be
a good
mini
one.
Josh?
All
right,
right,
I don't want to be mini Josh. I just want to be Josh. But it's I don't want to stick up for the guy either because it's he really sucks, really bad. But still, it's I mean,
we have it hard enough already.
He sucks because he sucks. Why does he have to suck? Because he doesn't have to be mini Mike. Why can't he just be sucky Mike? I digress. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't normally get offended by my shortness, but I mean, come on, you're killing us. You're killing your folk.
Shitty Mike. So, all right, moving on here. So the conservative or the liberal or progressive, whatever you want to call it, bundling site Act Blue. It's a site that was made essentially at the behest of progressive causes and almost exclusively used by Democrats. Is for small dollar fundraising. Debuted, I believe, back in 2012. As part of federal election commission requirements, donations made to candidates have limits. I forget what the exact number is, but it's like $5,000. I think it might be too high. Either way, the Act Blue is a pseudo-official DNC fundraising platform that collects small dollar donations and bundles them, and it's a pass-through, so it's not technically, the donation isn't being made by Act Blue, they're just collecting the money for a fee. 2019, the data has been published for donor data for 2019, and a conservative watchdog or activist group, whatever you want to call it, has looked into the Act Blue data, and somehow $346 million is donated to Democrats or progressive causes by people who are listed as unemployed. Now, that could be truly unemployed. That could be homemakers or retired people. They all kind of fall into that basket. But average donation of $74 per head made by unemployed people. Does that sound fishy to you? Or is, if you believe Orange Man, Tangerine Mussolini, that is this foreign money laundering? Is this the Democrats using foreign
this is
illegal
why
people who aren't eligible to spend money donating to candidates to say a domestic election here? Or is this just the Democrats are really good at getting people who don't have
things like campaign finance reform? And McCain-Feingold's big campaign finance reform, where it was this like, listen, I know that I am a failure in trying to reach out to people to say, hey, can't you people see that the system is against you? Can't you people see that the government isn't your friend, isn't helping you out? But I've been trying that for years and I'm failing miserably. So I'm going to do this. I realize that the vast majority of people out there are binary and think that, one half of the duopoly that runs our country is good and the other half is bad. Do you Republicans out there really trust the Democrats to not cheat? Okay, I just pissed off half the world. Okay, or half the country. Do you Democrats out there really think that the Republicans won't cheat? Okay, now I got you back and pissed off the other half. They're cheaters. They're going to use the system, and it's not even cheating when you are technically right. No, you're right. You actually are right. If you are absolutely right, Dorf. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. And if you truly believe that your message, that your goal is more important than the system itself, which the Democrats believe that, and the Republicans believe that. If you believe that, then you are going to, at the very least, cheat within the rules. Cheating would be to absolutely positively break the rules, but you're at the very least going to push the limits of the rules. This is like, no one in basketball says, well, traveling's bad. Traveling is so bad that I'm going to actually, I get a step and a half, but I'm going to make sure I never even take more than a half step. I'm going to dribble even more than is necessary because I love the game so much. No, you are going to push the every limit of that. I just love the game of football so much that there's rules about unnecessary roughness, so I'm just going to make sure I really am not rough at all. No, that is not how it works. You are going to, if you don't cheat, and again, you Democrats out there think the Republicans are definitely going to cheat because they suck, and you Republicans out there think that the Democrats are definitely going to cheat because they suck. But you are at the very least going to push the limits of your thing. And I hate to quote George W. Bush here, but it was George W. Bush who described, at the time it was the McCain-Feingold bill, not even law, it later became law, but he described it as unilateral disarmament, I believe. Basically him saying that you're doing this, but you're purposely discounting the unions, which, have big time agendas. Like, this is screwing us up. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Even if the idea isn't bad, the methodology sucks. So you're looking at this, basically what's happening is when you over-regulate things, people think that over-regulating things or regulating things in general will diminish the power, but it doesn't. When you regulate things, all it does is it allows the powerful who have the ability to work within the regulations to thrive, while those who do not have set ability, not only they can't even function. It can't work for them at all. So when you have things like campaign finance reform, which leads to this, because people can't give everything they want to a candidate, they have to find new ways to spend that money. You were going to spend X amount of money on this campaign. You're a rich dude, and you were going to spend X amount of dollars on the 2020 campaign because it's important to you. It's your money, goddammit. And
it's your money, and I need it
decided,
now.
They decided they were going to do it. You can't stop them. So they're going to do it. And they're going to do it one way or the other. And there's still plenty of legal methods. This leads to things like, I don't know, Dorf, you old enough to remember, what was it called? Skiff boat captains against John Kerry?
No.
You old enough to remember that one?
I would have been...
Oh, yeah, this was...
That would have been, what,
04.
04? I would have been in middle school. I didn't really pay attention at that point.
Okay, it's basically because campaign finance reform said that these groups couldn't give it to it anymore, they just basically took out their own ads. They started an independent, completely legal, 100% legal. They just took out their own ads on TV. And the idea being John Kerry was at one point a skiff boat captain in Vietnam. He messed up, and some people died. And it was kind of if the story is true, it's kind of a shameful thing that maybe he did or didn't do. JFK had a similar thing for these students of history out there that
boat in World War II that got sunk. He almost died.
Right, and he was and some other people did die.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the he was the officer. He wasn't a captain.
He was a young officer. Yeah.
Right, and is similar to John Kerry. John Kerry was an officer on the skiff boat, and people died that day. You know what? I've never been on a skiff boat in in Nam, or in a tiny boat taking fire in World War II, and I'm not really ready to throw people under the bus for it. And trust me, I'm no John Kerry fan, by the way. In fact, I'm the opposite of a John Kerry fan.
Not that you're not a fan, but you're definitely the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not really ready to criticize this. To criticize that, but because of that, these groups started, and they just used their money, which is their money to use. You got a couple of, old, rich Navy veterans that started this fund, made a ton of money. They were George W. Bush supporters, and they just ripped John Kerry apart with these ads. And what was so nice for George W. Bush is that he got to say, when they said, well, what about this, skiff boat captains? And I might be saying the title completely wrong. It's been years since I thought about this. But when people mentioned it to George W. Bush and said, well, what about the skiff boat captains for Kerry? They're saying terrible things about him and putting their message all over the world. He said, I told you campaign finance reform sucked. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I told you before, remember when John McCain was trying to run against me for the nomination, and I told you that that's a terrible idea and not to do it, and he lost to me, went back to the Senate and passed it? Like, dude sucked. The bill sucked. John Kerry and John McCain were like, the Republican Democrat odd couple, best buds in the Senate, and he passed this thing, and it screwed over his homeboy. What do you want? Like, these ideas suck. So many people think that they can just take these, like, oh, it's bad that rich people are doing things with their money that we don't like. And this is what happens. You try to regulate it, and it gets worse. If rich people want to waste their money on dumb stuff, I say let them.
Let them.
I don't know. Let them spend their money on dumb stuff. I mean, Mike Bloomberg wants to spend $100 million. I mean, I can't. I'm not in the position financially, as the like electric company, and as the people sending me bills in the mail. I am certainly not in the position to call a billionaire dumb. I'm certainly not. But if you had $100 million to I don't know. I mean, spend it, bro. I don't know. I mean, I think you're an idiot. I don't know what to say about it. Or there's something else in it for you. And then you get into conspiracy stuff, right? Then it's take your tinfoil hat off, Josh. What are you talking about? But I think that this money's buying him some sort of power. Either the money's buying him some sort of power, and there is a larger cabal involved here, if you will, or dude's an idiot. I mean, seriously, dude is just an idiot. I mean, he's got $100 million to drop, and I can see somebody being foolish with money. People are foolish with large sums of money all the time, but that's not like Bloomberg. If he was going to be foolish with his money, he could have done that years ago. He could have made his first $100 million, quit working, went to the casino, picked up some chicks. I don't know. There's plenty of ways to blow money on dumb things. He's had plenty of opportunities to blow money on dumb things throughout his long, wealthy life. But he's just now choosing to do this. So I got to feel like he's getting something from this. He's getting something out of it.
He wants to play God.
Yeah. I mean, he's getting something out of it. But it's not working for playing God because people hate him. I mean, really, people hate the guy. Nobody likes Mike Bloomberg. The Democrats don't like him. The Republicans loathe him. This is a guy he's been elected as a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent, technically. Or he's held every one of those positions. But, I mean, leave the state of New York, and I mean, he's like the Wicked Witch of the West. But I guess it'd be the East. He's like the Wicked Witch. As soon as he leaves there, like his powers don't work here. Get away from us. I mean, as soon as he leaves the West and goes into the Munchkin City, where you think he belongs, they tell him.
Dude, we're getting so much. All right, I went with at least an established nickname, but Jesus, man, now we're gonna get in trouble with like. The folks that own the trademarks on Willy Wonka now.
Hey, come on, dude! Listen, I'm allowed to say Munchkin. I'm 3 inches shorter than the average male. That's my word. Okay. you can't take that from me. Yeah, you should be able to get in trouble for saying it. But I mean, I'm as a Munchkin, I can say it.
As a member of the Munchkin Guild, you're allowed to.
As mayor of the Munchkin City in the county of the Land of Oz, I can say this. But listen, I don't know why Mike Bloomberg is doing this. It's either nefarious or it's stupid, and we can't rule out both. That's basically all I can say. Tom Steyer's the same thing. He's you could call Tom Steyer Mini Mike, and he's basically
he's Mini Mike, but he's not worth anywhere near as much money.
Right. He's he's like the Mike Bloomberg wannabe, Mike Bloomberg sidekick. Mini Mike and Robin. I don't know. However you want to say it. That's basically what's going down here, and So you can believe either way, it is his money, right? I mean, if they didn't have all these regulations and silly laws, then he wouldn't have to, do dumb things to hide it. Is it really those dudes? Is it really men and women who are, unemployed giving that much money? I don't know. I mean, those numbers do seem weird to me. They seem fishy. At the same time, there's a lot of rich retired people.
Well, they may not be retired. They're
people.
mature in age, but either way.
Hmm. Do they usually vote for
Republicans.
super statist Democrats?
No, they
Who
usually
are,
vote
you
for
know,
big government Republicans.
yeah, I mean, do they usually vote for the Democrat who gets up on the stage and talks, and the other Democrats look at him like, "Who's this statist?" like what happened with Bloomberg. No,
You're a
they
white
don't.
male, sir. You are
Typically,
not allowed to. You're an old white guy. You're not allowed to win. But this old white guy can.
yeah, right, right, yeah. I don't know. You know, I mean, if you want my my conspiracy, you know, my razor edge conspiracy theory, if you will, I kind of believe that, and I mean, I know this is kind of like shadow government speech, and I'm not trying to use those terms, but
Josh,
you know,
I think as part of our ongoing here, we're gonna have to make tinfoil hats and have them on the standby. That we have to put them on our heads when we're talking like
yeah,
this.
oh, totally, totally. I should probably. Mine's underneath my hat. I just don't tell anyone. But listen, if you ask me, yes, there are kind of mini like shadow governments, if you will. There are definitely administrations.
the
there are administrations that live on.
the administrative the administrative state is what I'd call it. It's like the professional
Sure.
the career bureaucrats who think they set policy. Alexander Vindman. Oh, sorry, did that guy's name come out of my mouth?
I mean, if
he's a whistleblower though, so we're probably banned from YouTube now. I'm sorry.
You know, for those of you who are going, oh, shut up, Dorf and Josh, you suck. For those of you saying that because we're taking the... No, actually, it's not a conspiracy. I mean, every president that leaves office retains a staff and Secret Service, and they are still involved, and they do, in essence, have their own little government.
Most members
they're
of...
not ruling elites anymore.
I mean, you look
no
at
longer
most...
ruling, but they still hold that position.
Most living members of like former cabinet members that leave on good terms, or you know, just their government loses or terms out. Guys with security clearances keep their security clearance, and the reason for that is essentially, so if the current Secretary of Defense has a conundrum and wants some advice, he can call the old guy and give him the classified information and pick his brain on it. That's the idea. However, you've seen even under the Trump administration, you've got former Obama intelligence officials that have used that, connected with the permanent bureaucratic state, and their still current security clearance to essentially leak shit that's negative about the president to the public. Quite frankly, if I have the lightest security clearance you can get due to the nature of my day job. If I did shit like that, not that I have access to anything like that, essentially can look at declassified blueprints. That's about what I can do. You or I were to do that, we'd be in prison. Would charge under the Espionage Act, and we would never see the light of day again.
And they wouldn't think twice about absolutely.
No, I mean this country has, I didn't include it in tonight's show prep because Josh, I don't think you had time to listen to a 3-hour podcast today, but
I didn't.
Joe Rogan had Edward Snowden on again. That was published today, and they discussed this, and just like the people who have blown the whistle on actions of the U.S. Intelligence Committee, including himself, and those who didn't get out of the country are all rotting in prison. They were charged as spies. They didn't go after, even though there was a decision that essentially found the program that Snowden had blown the whistle on to be unconstitutional. That was I believe the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on that this week. The program's been disbanded, so it's irrelevant at this point. But the stuff that Edward Snowden blew the whistle on was unconstitutional.
Right.
Whistleblower statutes that protect people like that. Yet Edward Snowden still has an open warrant for espionage. He'll never be able to come home without a pardon.
I mean, listen, whether people want to believe my my rants or not, whether people want to try to label me a conspiracy theorist, that's fine. But listen, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, and George Bush Sr. while he was alive, Ronald Reagan while he was alive. All these people wake up every morning and they get a security briefing. They still have a full staff. They have Secret Service, and these people get a security briefing every single morning. That's a government. That's a staff. That's an administration. Those administrations never die. They never go away. What you do with it, I don't know. It seems like Barack Obama still seems pretty well interested
he took a couple of years off, but he's incredibly politically active again.
Right. I mean,
whereas compared to George W. Bush, after the unveiling of his portrait at the White House, he said Orange Man bad a couple times, but other than that, that's really it.
Yeah, I mean, George W. Bush, if you believe the press, it seems like he puts his in a shredder and picks up his paintbrush.
He lives a quiet life on his ranch and paints all day. Like, that's
right. I mean, dude seems kind of.
But you haven't
Jimmy
seen
Carter. Maybe Jimmy Carter hasn't looked at one in 10 years. I don't know, or maybe they're far more involved than they let us know.
Well, the Obama political machine is still running.
Absolutely. And my point being with the Bloomberg thing, because, okay, if you're going to still call me a tinfoil hat for saying that the Democratic primaries are rigged and fixed, well, I'm sure there's a happy medium between tinfoil hat and sheep, but you're a sheep, bruh. If you're still believing that system isn't, tampered with at the very least.
Like Jeb Bush was the party man at the beginning of the 2016 cycle. He was one of the first guys out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you honestly think the GOP establishment in 2015 and early 2016 wanted anything to do with Donald Trump? He was an interloper. He had ran for office before under another party's banner, and you know what? He's incredibly popular within the party.
What happened with Donald Trump? I mean, is whether it is pre-planned,
so much winning,
whether it's him playing 5D chess underwater, or whether it was sheer luck. What happened with Donald Trump is that the Republican Party, and they couldn't get out of this, was that they, in essence, became a situation where it became the Trump vote and the anti-Trump vote. And the anti-Trump vote was split between 15 dudes. I mean, that's basically how it went down. If you believe
very similar things happened in this cycle for the Democrats. It was the progressive vote and the back to normalcy vote. The progressive vote was split 15 ways, and the back to normalcy vote went to Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say when I was talking about these, press briefings that they get and security briefings that they get is that what I think happened, where I think Bloomberg was a bust running, back to Mike Bloomberg, is that you can call them shadow governments, you can call them mini administrations, you can just call them the powers that be within the party. They fight amongst themselves as much as they fight with the other party. And if you ask me, I believed at the time, and I believe now, that Mike Bloomberg was the representative of the Clinton faction of the Democratic Party. Okay. And that Joe Biden was the representative of Obama's faction. These are still major factions that are still functioning hardcore within the Democratic Party behind the scenes. And
the new progressive
Obama
faction
won.
Was everybody else.
Yeah, and Obama won. To be honest, I don't think they care about progressive socialist. I don't think they give a shit. I really don't. Just like now you see them moving towards Bernie's ideas because they think it's what people want to hear. They didn't ever fear Bernie's ideas. They feared Bernie because he's not part of either of those systems. Bernie was never
and he had a
going
moderate cult of personality.
right. You know, they didn't want they didn't want the progressive Donald Trump. They don't want Bernie because they can't control Bernie. They can keep him at bay by buying him houses or
I have a
placate.
cabin like many other Vermonters. Bernie, your cabin is on the coast and it's worth like $2
Right.
million. Fuck off.
Right. Just
You notice, by the way,
and
once he became a millionaire, he stopped saying the millionaires and the billionaires, and it just turned into the billionaires.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
When you write a
Bernie
successful,
Sanders,
when you write a successful book, you may make some money.
yeah, Bernie Sanders is an absolute hypocrite. I'm sorry. It is that simple. It is that simple. And for those people, those Bernie fans out there saying that, well, no, it's not hypocritical because other people make money. No, but that's why it's hypocritical because he's the one preaching against it. But in my opinion, really, in my opinion, and it's not a made up thing. It's a fairly educated idea, is that I do believe that the Obamas won out, and within the inner workings.
This
Of the,
they didn't win in
Democratic-
2016. They didn't win in 2016, but they did this time.
No, right. I mean, they won out. They got the support. They knew where the bodies were buried. Whatever however you want to say it, and they positioned themselves. And Obama positioned himself, and or the people within that part of the that side or that mini. Yeah, I don't like to use shadow government because I feel like the thing is tainted, but it's actually a great term. It actually works, the idea of saying that it is a shadow government or a mini government or a stateless government, perhaps, is a good way to put it. But, the Obama faction of the stateless governments won out. Biden's their guy. And he got it, and it's evidenced by him calling Mayor Pete and other people up, and obviously promises were made that Joe Biden's an old man, but he's going to be the head of the party, he's going to be the face of this, and your time will come later, and we're going to rock Kamala Harris, and we're going to make this, we're going to make this work. I think if the Clintons won out behind the scenes, then we'd be having this conversation about Mike Bloomberg. Because they didn't, Mike Bloomberg is the fool. Mike Bloomberg, is this guy that just spent too much money and, he got his butt kicked. But there's things behind the scenes that he would have been kicking the butts instead of getting the butt kicked. If the strings were pulled differently, that's all there is to it. So he lost. He's the fool. He's the big rich dope who's gonna knuckle up and take one on the chin and move forward and still keep pumping in his cash because he's obviously getting something from it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's part of me that looks at Mike Bloomberg or others and says, I guess he still certainly has that purpose. He definitely is still motivated to try to accomplish something. I mean, a quarter of the way to Mike Bloomberg's wealth, I probably would have bought an island and would be, catching rays on my private island somewhere and wouldn't even give a shit what all you people were doing or who you were voting for. Just be living the life. But no, not him. He's, you can call that motivation. You can say that he's going for something greater. You can also say he's power hungry. I'm not sure that there's even a difference other than, perception. But obviously these guys are getting something. Like we led with the show.
They wouldn't
Money
do it
has
if
always
they,
been
they wouldn't
power.
do it if they
It doesn't
didn't.
grant you rights. So
Okay, so
Right.
we're gonna put a quick bow on this, but we're gonna talk quickly about case law, essentially the most recent Supreme Court precedent set about campaign finance in general, that being Citizens United versus FEC, commonly known as Citizens United. To summarize, a Republican-ish political action committee wanted to publish a movie detrimental to Hillary Clinton's primary effort right before her first attempt at running for president. And at the time, there was a law that had been passed through Congress banning speech of a disparaging nature within a certain amount of days of a primary or general election. This would go because they had donated money to a political cause. Their political action group, they weren't allowed to publish this movie because it was in violation of that law. Well, that was found to be unconstitutional, an unconstitutional undue burden on the First Amendment rights of this group, essentially setting the precedent that political action committees can do what they want. Like it or not, that is currently the law of the land. There is still individual contribution limits and reporting requirements. If you or I were Joe Jorgensen for president right now, we would have to, legal name, contact information, and who we work for, believe it or not, would have to be disclosed. Our employer would have to be disclosed, or any other candidate. Not just Joe Jorgensen. There are individual caps
for who your employer is. You can't put like your mom or something. No,
that was the scandal in the scandal per se. I didn't even call it a scandal. It's quite frankly, it hasn't gone anywhere because it's just a partisan audit. I'm sure there's a plausible explanation for most of it.
Like when I write your mom on there, and then they question it, and I say she employed me last night.
Hey, who?
No, that doesn't work.
Anyway, that's Citizens United. It's not the you hear a lot of progressives rail against it, like it was the downturn and allowed money to take over politics. No, it just took like there was an expiration date on money in politics before. Like there was a blackout date, and it took that away. That's not what,
right.
The First Amendment allows this fuckhead, like, quit being a moron. I'm talking about you young Turks. Anywho,
Get right, young Turks.
God, those guys are terrible. I can't believe I watched them for like 3 months at one point in my life. Anywho, anything else, man?
No, I think we nailed it. I certainly don't have anything else to say about PACs and things. I mean, I railed on that earlier. I don't know if I ever used the term PACs, but that's exactly what I was talking about.
The legal definition is a
personal action committees.
Political action committee. Yes. So.
Right. Yeah. No. Maybe I said that, maybe I didn't. I don't remember. But when I was talking about the campaign finance reform and the skip boat captains against Kerry and all that stuff,
those were PACs.
Gave rise.
Yeah, that was a PAC.
Rise to the political action. Yeah, to the PAC.
PACs do not have to disclose with certain tax statuses. Do not have to disclose their funding sources. Which who knows if the case law will be changed on that here soon, because like the state of New York is suing the NRA, and they're seeing in that lawsuit and discovery donor rolls, which I don't think will be granted. But if it does, like, anonymous speech is still speech. You should still be able to say it and not have to put your name on it. And when it comes to political activity, I think things would be a lot more civil if you had to, but that doesn't mean you should. We'll see where that goes. Yeah.
The idea of the PAC, real quick, I know we're trying to wrap up, but the idea of the PAC and why it's bad isn't that the PAC is bad. This was my point about regulation being bad. And it was even George W. Bush's point way back when. Again, not somebody who I'm necessarily a huge fan of, but this was the point back then, was that PACs only exist because the regulation and the law made them exist. Because because what they used to be was outlawed. So you can outlaw the PACs if you wish, and then you can give them 72 hours to find out the thing that will replace the PAC that will be just as bad. That's why it's dumb. This is why the regulation of it does not work, because the PAC exists only to very legally, 100% legally, in fact, circumvent what they once were and that is now outlawed. So outlaw the PAC, and the PAC will become the I don't know, call it what you will. They'll come up with some clever name for it. 72 hours later they'll come up with the way to do it. 75 hours later they're going to come up with a really clever name. The
speech fund,
political action, whatever. I'm sure it'll have some kick-ass, acronym.
I'm gonna steal something from Edward Snowden today in his Rogan appearances. They talked briefly about the conspicuous namings of bills, specifically the Patriot Act. There's nothing patriotic about what the Patriot Act did.
Oh my God!
And quite frankly, you can thing the Save the Puppies Act, and it'll get passed through Congress, even though it'll be the most draconian thing ever. But
you're not allowed to bring up the Patriot Act when we're trying to end a show. To me, man, that's a low blow. But I'll shut up.
It's been modified to the USA Freedom Act, and if you don't like it, you can get out. No, I'm kidding. It's terribly awful. But anywho, that's gonna do it here tonight, guys. 15 of the. We normally would publish on Tuesday. I think that's going to be Wednesday or Thursday most weeks now, just the way it works out for us. So join us next time. Same place you found us. Yep, same place you found us this time. We'll be there again. So for Josh, I'm Dorf. We'll see you all next time.